Hello, my name is Callan Bond. I'm the ITAM Services Portfolio Manager. I'm joined today by Akash Mehta and Mike Wally, and we're going to go through a short deck talking about how to build out your ITAM support team after you have SAM or HAM implemented. The first thing we're going to look at is what kind of roles you need for a successful group to support your SAM and HAM implementations once the project team has ridden off into the sunset. So we have 3 roles on here, and we're actually going to talk about roles that you might have thought would be part of this that are missing, but let's talk about what we have here first. So we have 2 separate roles for SAM, a software asset management system admin and a software asset manager. The system admin has a little bit more of a technical focus. So they are really maintaining the SAM application. They work with the software asset manager on a daily basis, but they are going to be more in the weeds on what needs to be done to ensure that software titles are being imported correctly, the reports are generating, all of the platform-specific knowledge that you need to maintain and grow your SAM implementation. Software Asset Manager is a little more process focused. So they are working with a lot of other folks within the organization on making sure that the SAM processes are correct, that they are interfacing correctly with other processes. They're heavily involved with software audits, and we're working with cost center owners on budgeting and managing your software spend. The hardware asset management admin is, in a way, a combination of the 2 other roles. And so depending on the size of your organization, you may have 2 people filling this role. And what we have here is somebody who's both technically inclined and can manage the HAM portion of the implementation, but also has the process knowledge associated with managing hardware spend, and somebody who knows all of the life cycle and disposition cycle items that are associated with your hardware spend at your organization. Mike or Akash, any thoughts on the other roles that we're missing here?
Yeah, I've got a few comments. So, from a software asset management system admin perspective, as you said, that those guys are typically in the detail. So, from a software asset management perspective, they will be updating software license records, creating software license records, and also adding purchase records into the platform. Software asset manager, key role there, which isn't actually outlined in this slide, is the software asset manager must have good knowledge of different vendors' licensing models and how licenses can be applied within the customer environment. And then the point I just wanted to make about the hardware asset management admin, the key thing to remember here is there's not a one-to-one correlation here between the process role and function. And within an organization, you could arguably have 50 hardware asset management admins who are performing that process role every now and again. And what I'm talking about there is that these admins will need to be updating hardware asset records as they go through that life cycle that Callan outlined. So when we actually dispose of an asset, there needs to be an update to that asset record to indicate that it's no longer within an organization.
Callan, you had mentioned possible roles that are not necessarily highlighted here, contract managers, and as well as from the procurement side, a procurement manager. They typically are going to be associated or tied into from a team perspective with these folks. You will find that they work closely hand in hand with these different roles. Software asset managers and hardware asset managers may in fact be contract folks as well and procurement folks, or you may have those separate roles and separate people doing that functionality within ServiceNow as well. So depending, like you said, on the size of the organization, they could be part of these roles, or they may also be managed outside of these roles as well.
Great. All right. Thank you. All right. I'm going to pass it over to Akash now to talk about the skills and training that a SAM system admin should have.
Thanks. Yeah, I think the main part of this slide is to understand that Your system admin may be performing SAM functions. So a lot of the normal system admin, like being able to do business rules and things like that with JavaScripting, integrations with web services, they would typically perform. But the additional pieces for SAM, which you'd want them to understand SCCM and how that data is coming in, software installation records and how that's coming in from your various discovery tools, as well as orchestration and performance analytics to be able to support a lot of the core SAM functionality that you're going to have within ServiceNow. Additionally, from a SAM admin perspective, training wise, you're definitely going to want to take the software asset management fundamentals to be able to help with understanding the structure of SAM. And then if you definitely want to get deeper into that, then the certified implementation specialist is another course that is also important and can help out a lot within your day-to-day steps and processes.
Great. And I'll ask Mike to talk about Software Asset Manager.
Okay, so as I mentioned previously, one of the key skills that a software asset management needs to have is this experience in interpreting licensing terms, conditions, and understanding how those licenses are used within a production environment. Example there will be that for Microsoft licensing, that's dependent upon whether or not you install software at the virtual or physical layer. That will have a lot of ramifications in regards to how you actually reconcile those licenses. So that's the sort of experience that a software asset manager would need to have. And on top of that, the software asset manager would really be the operational lead or operational manager within a software asset management team. So they would be responsible for designing workflows, which would, an example there would be, how would you actually request software? How would you request non-standard software? Also, the other key element, which is the bottom point here, is understanding software license positions and how to reconcile non-compliant software. So for example, would they trigger a request to uninstall unlicensed software? Would the correct way forward be to purchase software to address that non-compliant position? So those are the sort of decisions that the software asset manager would need to make based on his knowledge of a vendor's or a publisher's licensing terms, conditions, and the results of the reconciliations that we execute within the SAM Professional module. Similar to what Akash was talking about, we would expect the software asset manager to have a training in the ServiceNow software asset management fundamentals, industry certifications like ISO v3, or now we're into ISO v4, and the ITAM certifications that you can see listed here. So it's important the software asset manager understands these industry best practices to execute his management duties on a day-to-day basis.
So from a hardware asset management perspective, here on this particular slide, we're looking at a single role, but this could also, similar to software, be separated into multiple roles depending on the organizational size. But really from a HAM admin perspective, we're looking at the ability to understand the hardware processes, requests to procurement, receiving, as you would do also on the SAM side, understanding contracts and how they relate to assets, and what other discovery tools are bringing in configuration data that may affect the asset as well. So just having an understanding of not just the system in terms of tool understanding, but also just overall hardware lifecycle as well. And then similar to on the SAM side, we have a hardware asset management fundamentals, kind of get a good understanding of the structure of how ServiceNow has hardware asset management configured and how it ties into configuration management and understanding those two pieces of it. And then also the requests and the procurement functions that go along with that as well.
Great. Now, to take us through to the end of the deck here, we're going to look at typical support activities that these roles would have on a daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly basis. So this is great when you're thinking to build out your team. Maybe you're a manager or director who has to make requests for staff to take over your operational support of these roles. This gives you a little bit of meat to think of in your requests. What are the kinds of things that these roles will be doing on a regular basis? So we're going to go through these slides fairly quickly, and I'll just ask Mike or Akash to jump in as they have see any key points on these slides. First, on a daily basis here, anything that in particular you think sticks out?
Again, from a SAM administrator role, I would expect them to understand how software installations and the normalization of those installations to discovery models, how that affects the overall product, the reconciliation. So being able to reconcile and make sure that those are getting reconciled, and if they're not, being able to manually reconcile the unmatched ones is very key to the reconciliation process. Working with the software asset manager daily, weekly, having that tie-in with them, they're going to be able to tell you what, from a reconciliation standpoint, what kind of sticks out. Being able to manage and help with rectifying those type of issues that may come up, and those usually tie back to how something is normalized within ServiceNow. Also, from a weekly standpoint, you may be looking at needing to create any custom products or any custom part numbers to be able to help support any new software that's coming in as well. So.
Right. Monthly, we're looking at, your regular monthly meetings with your peers, of course, any major incidents you're going to want to review, and requests for enhanced feature functionality that comes out either from your organization, identified from KPIs, or with new features introduced into the platform. The yearly tasks we'll see are similar across the different roles here, and they really boil down to keeping on top of the new releases with ServiceNow and participating in the community, whether that's through the forums, and hopefully that's more than a yearly basis, but getting out to knowledge if possible and participating in your local user groups, snug groups, and other events.
The software asset management role is obviously more strategic than the software asset management admin role. So the SAM manager is going to be more focused on the smooth operation of the software asset management process within the organization, and doing the types of things that you expect most managers to be doing, approving requests, and the examples here are for when we need to reclaim software that isn't being used frequently, and also removal requests as well when we need to actually uninstall software from a user's device when it's been used infrequently. Also looking for opportunities to improve the SAM process, and making sure that that SAM process is fit for purpose within an organization. So that's essentially what the SAM manager is doing on a daily basis, is making sure that his process is working effectively and smoothly. From a weekly basis, the recommendation in ServiceNow is that on a weekly basis, you're going to execute software reconciliations, the outcome of which is an effective license position, which will tell you whether or not your software licenses are compliant and non-compliant. And to my mind, this is really the Rosetta Stone of what a software asset manager should be doing. It's actually understanding financial exposure within an organization, which could be caused by needing to true up unlicensed software. The software asset manager is also looking at opportunities to save money by reclaiming software that has been used infrequently or not used at all. So keeping on top of those two elements is really important from a software asset management perspective. Monthly tasks again, process related, looking at KPIs, making sure that the performance indicators within a software asset management process are in range, making sure the quality of the data in the software asset management repository is accurate, and that will require close liaison with the SAM admin, getting involved with vendor or publisher audits, creating reports to defend licensing positions, being involved with those vendor audits as the main person that the vendor will actually deal with, and also from a contractual perspective, keeping on top of enterprise license agreements or subscription agreements that could be close to expiration, and making sure that those agreements are renewed or extended in a timely manner.
Then yearly, we're going to see ones similar to what we talked about with the SAM admin. You'll also be reviewing your SAM maturity journey. So there's definitely, you want to be road mapping out what you're doing with SAM and planning that at least on a yearly basis.
I think that just processing your requests as they come in, that's going to be your main focus from an administrative and process perspective is the requests that come in for standard and non-standard, and making sure your inventory is getting updated.
Great. All right, so on a weekly basis, one of the things I think important is to keep on top of disposed assets, making sure they're properly removed from the system. Anything else that we think stands out on a weekly basis?
Yeah, I mean, also as well, as a converse to that comment, that we also need to review assets that have been created to make sure that they've been added to the system in the correct manner. So the data integrity is correct. And the reason for me saying that is that hardware asset records can get automatically created from different sources, and we just need to validate that the quality of the hardware models and the associated asset records are okay.
Great point.
I think from a monthly perspective, and then this kind of will go into the yearly, just making sure your process is working. You're identifying requests that are being utilized or not utilized. You're identifying any new catalog items or any of that kind of stuff that needs to be, with models need to be created. You're ensuring that your disposal processes are setting the appropriate dates and are being updated correctly. So a lot of it is data, and just making sure that you're staying on top of that data. Kind of how Mike said, how important data is in the previous slide. It's the same thing here. So
great. Yearly, keeping on top of the new releases, participating in the ServiceNow community. You'll have your annual hardware refresh cycles to plan out with the right cost center owners, and of course, reviewing roadmaps for new hardware products, maybe playing with some new toys.
And just to add to that, definitely looking at your process and just improving that process as time goes on the yearly basis, just making sure, it's doing what it's supposed to do and you're enhancing it wherever you can.
Absolutely. All right, that's everything we had today. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Mike and Akash, for joining me, and stay engaged on the community forums. Thank you.